How you doing, guys? It's Philip McKernan, and you're very welcome. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the whole notion of taking action. And I went for a run this morning, just a couple of blocks from here. We have the water, and I went for a run. Met a guy who was out for a walk, and he said to me, I just stopped. I know him from working out in the gym, and we stopped and we just had a connection. And he just said he was out just to get a bit of space to either make a decision or to look for the clarity around the decision that he's already made. I'm not entirely sure which. It just got me to think about the whole notion of taking action and what prevents us taking action, and quite often it's the fear of making the wrong decision. So as we approach a crossroads and there's the right turn and the left turn, it's our fear of making the wrong turn, taking the wrong path, making the wrong decision, stepping into the wrong environment actually stifles us from making any decision whatsoever. The second part of that is the other people I meet that want to get all their ducks in a row. They want everything lined up perfectly, and they want everything to be absolutely perfect. The wind has to be blowing from the right, the sun has to be coming up from the left. Everything has to be just perfect before they make a decision. And again, that's a protective thing, because we're trying to protect ourselves to make sure that it's all perfect, so then it doesn't go to shit, basically. And it's all about looking good and not being judged, and either by ourselves or by other people, and making sure that it's the right decision. And my heart goes out to people like that, because at the end of the day, I think when you do that, I think what you do is you waste a lot of time in life. And people just, that notion of the ducks in a row, and those bastard ducks never line up. And, I just said the other day, speaking about it, as kind of dramatic or as silly as it sounds, I hate ducks. I hate that notion of the ducks in a row, because inevitably one of them is never going to be in a row. Or one of them will dive just under the water just as you're about to make a decision. So, I'm not going to talk too much about what stops us making a decision, but what I am going to do is I'm going to suggest something a little bit different to you maybe than you've heard before, and that is, rather than waiting for the clarity to show up, because you can take space around a decision that's going on in your life. You can take some space, go away for a night, go away for a day, go to the sea, and there's every possibility that by taking that space, the clarity will actually show up. But where the absolute clarity lies in everything in our lives is our intuition. It's in our gut. It's not in our heads. And what ends up happening is we mull it over and over and over and over in our heads all the time. And we analyze it to death, and then we phone someone and get their advice, and then we phone someone else, and we're just caught. It's all headiness because we're listening to other people. And it's like when people come to workshops and seminars with me, it's like I encourage them on occasions to stop taking notes, because if they're doing this and they're taking notes, they're moving between their head and their pen, their head and their pen, their head and their pen. They don't get lower than that into their intuitive gut, which is basically where your internal guidance system lies. So, leaving that aside for a moment, I have a very simple principle or saying, or I hate to call it a mantra, but it's in the absence of clarity, take action. And for those of you who have been exposed to me and my work, you've probably heard that many, many times before. In the absence of clarity, take action. For those of you who haven't heard me talk about this, I want to just briefly explain what the hell do I mean by that. So you come to a crossroads, you've got a right turn and a left turn. And what I'm suggesting is that you shouldn't just sit there and wait for a year, 6 weeks, 7 months, or anything else for the clarity to show up. Because you know what? It may not show up. Because your ability or inability to get in touch with your intuitive place, your gut, will determine the clarity. Because if you can't get in touch with this, if you're a heady person, you're going to constantly suffer from a lack of clarity in your life. I guarantee you that, for certain. When you start to get out of that, and I'll talk about that maybe another day, but when you're at that place, I believe that on occasions you just have to say, the hell with it, I'm going to make a decision, no matter what that is, right or left. And what ends up happening is, when I started to do this myself personally, is I had the same fears as everybody else. I still do. That one would be the wrong way. But what ends up happening is your stats, as I call them, like my hit rate, went from probably a 80-20 scenario. So 80% of the decisions I would make wouldn't necessarily serve me in the short term. In other words, they would appear to be the wrong ones, and 20% were the right ones. But as you lean more and more into taking action, I have a saying, the brave always win. And they do. Your stats start to shift to 30, 40, 50%, and you start to get kind of more confident around your decision-making process, and therefore more in tune with who you are. And what ends up happening is your hit rate goes up. I can honestly sit here today and say, I haven't analyzed it, but I have a sense that my hit rate will be probably up around 80%, so it's probably shifted. That 80% of the decisions or the opportunities I step into that are on my plate actually work out. They actually serve me in the short, medium, or long term because I'm trusting myself more and more and more. So in the absence of clarity, take action, because when you do take action, only one thing can happen, for certain, guaranteed. Big word, guarantee. I never use that, or rarely use that word. Guaranteed, one additional thing is going to happen when you take action. Additional clarity. Yes, it was the right decision. No, it was not the right decision. And if you can just trust that even the decisions that don't work out, that in some way that they're a part of the bigger picture anyway, and you can only see that when you look back many years from now, or weeks or months from now. But in the absence of clarity, take action. So if you're sitting there today and you don't have someone to lean on that you trust, an advisor to support you getting the decision out, or getting you out of your own way to allow the decision to show up, or whatever other reason there is, try something different. And it may scare the crap out of you, but just step in and take action and see what happens. And I trust that no different than what happened for me is that it will start to work out more and more and more, and your confidence around decision making will actually start to increase. Thank you.